I am just super pleased to introduce Don Prezant. Don is a Badge Summit All-Star who has been with Badge Summit since before Badge Summit started, back in the days when we were a Monday evening Twitter chat on hashtag Badge Chat K12 and then hashtag Badge Chat. And really that online community led to what is now an annual convening at this conference. And Don's been with us as a leader, a sharer, and an organizer since day one. And he always, leads with just thought leadership and partnership. And, I think my favorite part, Don, is your provocations and really just kind of, pushing us or maybe even pulling us into new and expanded ways of thinking better and in more evolved ways. And so without further ado, I will go ahead, mute and turn off my camera, but welcome, Don Prezant.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Noah, and I really appreciate being here. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you in Boulder in real life, but we have this sort of tariff situation going on now. But I hope some of you were able to catch Chris Newland, who took my place to talk about the civics credentialing system. This is my recognition rant from north of the border. I'm here today to expand your notions of recognition and digital credentials. And it's a perspective based on working with ePortfolios since 2004 and with Open Badges since they were invented in 2011. And includes a connection with Noah over the years that he's mentioned, starting with Badge Chat and morphing into the very impressive Badge Summit that we have today. Today's session will build on some points I've been making over the years, and I'll be suggesting some directions for the future. Some of you will recognize slides from other presentations, but as my old mentor used to say, just about when you're getting fed up with repeating yourself is just about when people start understanding what you're talking about. So let's get underway here. To begin with, I will say that you're going to have to recognize me first. I'm going to be talking a lot about Open Badges as flexible containers for making recognition visible. So I'm going to begin with a visual narrative about me that includes a few digital badges. I call myself an immigration brat because my father joined Canadian immigration and we sailed to Europe on the SS Franconia from Montreal. I went to school in Europe, two different school systems, part of the British Forces School Service in Germany, and I had an American curriculum at the International School of Brussels. I actually played Richard Nixon in my grade 8 civics class. Anybody remember 4 more years? It didn't quite work out that way, of course. So anyway, Canadian, British, and American school systems early on, and then I went to actually 3 post-secondary institutions in Canada before I finally got my degree, scattering multiple unvalued credits in my wake. After graduating and then entering and then exiting a failed career as a filmmaker, I actually joined TV Ontario as a video editor, where I made the transition into EdTech when I led the team that took them onto the internet in the early 90s. I like to say kicking and screaming because they were actually more worried at the time about the 500 channel universe and satellite cable than the millions of channels popping up on social media and the web. I do sometimes apologize to people for the state of the internet today, but that's me. I'm Canadian. I left TV Ontario in 2000 to set up Learning Agents as an EdTech consultancy, and with the tagline that we still use today, we may not be smart, but we're learning. Our first big client was Red River College in Winnipeg. Winnipeg is where I'm still based because I started a family there. Since then, Learning Agents, my company, is focused on career journeys, lifelong learning, the recognition of life-wide learning, first with ePortfolios and then with digital badges and micro-credentials since 2011. Along with the advocacy and consulting, we're the hosts of CanCred, leading Canadian digital badge micro-credential platform. Logos here you see are some of our clients and partners wearing the different hats. I like to tell people I wear 3 different hats in addition to being a service provider. We're Learning Agents as a consultant and a partner with various organizations. And as Dawn, I'm an advocate for opening up recognition practices, no matter what the technology. As evidence that we do drink our own champagne, I have a badge-based portfolio on a free platform called CanCred Passport, and I invite you to check out my Open Recognition Ambassador badge representing the Advocate hat. and a few other of the more recent badges, some of which, oh my God, I issued to myself, including that one about ask me about my skills cocktail. Okay, I'll tell you, relentless curiosity, pleasant persistence, and a lingering delusion that I can make a positive difference in the world. So that didn't take too long. I spared you the dark and stormy night when I was born, but it's a story, right? It's a narrative, it's a journey. It tells you a bit about why I'm here today. And we actually need more stories in our badges. That's not just me saying that. That's actually what Noah Geisel has reminded me a couple of weeks back that he's been saying for years, first with Badge Chat and now with Badge Summit. Because I, for one, I don't think skills are enough. So skills first sounds good. Certainly sounds better than qualifications first. This annual exercise by Smart Resume at a skills ecosystem has been getting better over the years, but you got to bear in mind that it's based on interviewing people who are inside the bubble and have drunk the LER Kool-Aid. So it's pretty aspirational, and I actually find it a teensy bit technology first. Do we really think it works this way with the way skills are supplied, packaged, and consumed in a totally logical ecosystem like some kind of Tron for skills? Not according to a lot of the research out there. Overall, my take is that there's too much emphasis on hiring, prefabricated training programs for upskilling, too much focus on teaching skills over developing them in workplaces, not enough of what Beverly Oliver used to call learning integrated work, more agile ways of developing skills as you're working. In fact, all that talk about modular skills programming and credential stacking makes me think of Lego not in such a good way. I'd like to think this is not what we're trying to do. I like to think we can do it better. For example, on the top right, how much do you remember 6 weeks after taking a RISE course, whether it was assessed or not? On the bottom right, what if you have a hot new skill, but you've got no way to apply it back in your workplace because your employer doesn't know what you're talking about? And learning pathways, micro-credential stacking, it's like catnip for some people. We do like to organize and rationalize things. MED does make them more understandable, but we need to understand that our logical constructs don't tell the whole story, and they may not be the best way to help learners develop, especially diverse learners. Sometimes instead of prescribing, we should be describing and evaluating and recognizing the learning that people already have and providing goals for them without insisting on the routes that they have to take to achieve those goals. Modular is great as long as all the pieces actually fit together. But I don't know, maybe a blended solution is the best way. I'm not sure. Actually, I think we need to back up a bit and realize that it's more holistic than modular. The World Economic Forum told us back in 2020 that half our workforce will need retraining by 2025, and here we are. They've since released a global skills taxonomy and now an education 4.0 taxonomy to support it. And let's have a look at the skills that people will need. Overall, they're very human, they're very embodied, holistic skills. Discipline specific looks a little lonely down there. Skills experts don't just talk about skills at the granular level, they focus more on roll-up competencies that combine knowledge, skills, and attributes in context to fulfill tasks and roles in actual real workplaces. Or even capabilities, those adaptable competencies that WF has listed here, and those can travel with savvy T-shaped workers who can adjust throughout their careers. So snapshot today, how well do LERs map to our current culture and processes, especially for small employers? How much do credentials really count for careers today? We have had diplomas and certificates. We now have badges and micro-credentials, but do these really answer these key questions? Aren't we still relying on the resume, the LinkedIn profile? Personal connections, referrals, the job interview, workplace tryouts. Isn't it still like, what's your story? And certificates alone don't tell your whole story. Hiring remains a more relational human connection. It is changing with technology, and I'm doing my damnedest to try and help change it, but not that fast. And so what do we do in the meantime? Well, let's talk about more human ways to develop skills and performance and make them visible. I work with a lot of educators, and certainly recognition can support academic advancement, whether it's credential transfer or recognition of experience for credit. But there's a lot more to life than post-secondary education recognition. What about jobs and careers, like the one you're now in, where maybe your degree is just a fading memory, or other reasons that may also be valid for people at different points in their lives? I'm going to be talking about much more than post-secondary education today, recognition today. Nan Travers, that's a name to conjure with. A lot of you will probably know. She's an international leader in recognition. I want to celebrate the work that she and others did in Credential As You Go, and the way she refers not just to prior learning, but also external learning. In fact, Nan these days just likes to say recognition of learning. And she's been increasingly calling out the tendency for institutions to recognize only what they know and cherish. In other words, they evaluate learning against what they already know and value, like in their existing programs. But actually, there's an opportunity for bidirectional learning, for institutions to learn from candidates and the employers of those candidates. Institutions do create lots of knowledge, but they do not have a monopoly on knowledge creation. They do have an advantage in assessment and recognition, I'm just saying. So recognition is lifelong and it's life-wide. It's about more than evaluation, it's about belonging, it's about humanity. The words on this slide come from an amazing keynote by a guy named Ted Fleming. I call him Father Ted. It was in Ireland at a Recognition of Prior Learning conference in May last year. Ted took the audience way beyond recognition for credit. And we're very proud of Wab Kinew, our First Nations Premier up here in Manitoba. The picture on the right is from his swearing-in ceremony. And I really like how the late Judge Murray Sinclair, who oversaw the Canadian Truth and Reconciliation Commission, looks on from that bottom left while Wab's uncle places his father's war bonnet on his head. This is recognition also. And note the many references on this slide to others, not just the individual. Recognition is about social connection, co-creation. And the open recognition community that I belong to and Noah belongs to has been developing these notions collaboratively for over 20 years. I've been learning a lot more about Indigenous ways of knowing over the last few years, and I'm reflecting that our Indigenous brothers and sisters have recognized people first all along. This is from the Canadian Council on Learning from way back in 2007, rest its memory. You actually see the formal and non-formal types of learning layering onto each other like rings on a tree. This perspective inspires more developmental and transformational approaches to recognition, nearer and dearer to our hearts for student retention and success. It's not so much about a transaction for credit or a transcript as an appreciation of the learner's gifts and encouragement to continue the learning journey. An example of that here is this Indigenous Learning and Recognition portfolio from Vancouver Island University. It helps Indigenous students ground themselves and where they come from, and it helps them with something called two-eyed seeing, that ability to balance Indigenous and Western perspectives at the same time. Now, it's possible the portfolios they create in that course could be used to apply for credit, but that's not the point. The point is for them to demonstrate to themselves that they belong. So, we're coming to the open recognition thing from a few different directions. Let's see if we can zero in a bit. This definition is recent from a paper written by Serge Rivet for an Erasmus project in Europe, adapted by me to be a little more concise. Note that it's social and relational, based on dialogue. I really like how he said that recognition can also precede learning, activate learning, shape it, continue beyond it. Is about more than some kind of retrospective static certificate. And it's a way of connecting people that goes beyond formal systems. So that was a context for the Paris Declaration that was launched at the International EPIC Conference last November. To summarize, recognition is about more than top-down selection, and it needs to appreciate the breadth of human experience. One of the aspects that took people by surprise last year was the notion that everyone really has the power to recognize, and that recognition itself is a form of empowerment. You can recognize yourself, you can recognize others, and that actually empowers you. I do encourage you to check it out and sign it, as did ACRAO. Groningen Declaration Network did it. Some other folks you might recognize here. And by the way, that's Serge with me on the right. He's been an inspiring thought leader for me over 20 years and just basically helps me keeping on. And this is me recognizing him. So let's try and put some flesh on those recognition bones. Learning Agents, my company, has developed a shareable framework to help organizations get started with flexible recognition. We've got this formal, non-formal spectrum. It's split between the presence and the absence of what I call summative assessment, the border of rigor, so-called, for these high-level badge types, and they run from formal to informal, either providing assurance or maybe just awareness. And here's some stacking with different labels based on formality. The framework guides the content or metadata that goes into the different kinds of badges that you might issue. What kind of assessment, for example. And it's helpful to signal the different kinds of badges with differentiated design, obviously. We provide people with badge templates that have customized metadata for these different types of badges, and they're basically intended as flexible starting points to help them get over that sort of blank badge creator block thing, and generally improves the quality of the badge system overall. People start seeing what they expect to see inside the badges, but it's also flexible. So, for example, we can split organized learning into the idea of synchronous and asynchronous organized learning. So, for example, self-paced courses or synchronous workshops. So 7 types here. There could be 5 or 3 or 9. One EdTech has their version, which is 3, and Navigator has their system, and I believe Royal Society of Arts, their digital badge system over in the UK, have come up with their own templates and models. So if you like, you're welcome to use this because there's a Creative Commons license. One organization that is using this framework is Jeremy McQuigg's Council Advancing Work-Based Learning, or COBBLE. This particular badge is part of a maintenance services training program they're rolling out for the Ottawa mission. So that's helping move disenfranchised populations into the workforce. COBBLE has adapted our assessed learning template for a very sophisticated work-based learning schema and ledger system. It's based on training units, codified knowledge, skills, and behaviors. It'll recognize prior and emergent learning. Jeremy is going to tell you all about it a bit later today. And just to say that this example is drawn from the CanCred Factory platform, but I should emphasize that a lot of this can be done with almost any credentialing platform, given a sufficiently flexible mindset. Here's one adaptation I hope a lot of you in Boulder had a chance to see. That's from Chris and the Civics credentialing system. I helped them develop this framework, adapted from our generic version, and some work we had done earlier for organizations like the Inter-American Development Bank and the International Labor Organization. You can see the similarity in the spectrum of formality, for example, but I love how they've characterized commitment and action and appreciation. As Chris said, this is a flexible system that honors both rigorous achievement and meaningful moments of connection. I shared this one last year. I think it's worth sharing again. It's a great example of recognition of professional development based on workplace practice and authentic evidence. The Franco-Ontarian Coalition for Adult Education, they've developed a unique adult educator competency framework. It's across 4 workplace roles at the 23 agencies delivering services across the province, Canada's biggest province. They're actually pretty proud of it. And workers at various levels in the agencies join the recognition network as members. Then they start targeting competencies that they want to be recognized for at one of 3 levels. They develop evidence packages, they document, they reflect, supporting the typical tasks and requirements. Their application is typically endorsed by a colleague, and a qualified member of the network will evaluate and then issue the badge or say, we need more evidence, or it's actually this level, that kind of thing. So it's, and then, rinse and repeat for the other badges and skills. So it's possible actually for an admin assistant to start in the system and then work their way up the competency ladder to becoming a manager or even director of an agency. So the COFA example shows that badges are more than just verifiable credentials. They can also be flexible containers for personalized career narratives. Those narratives might even include possible answers to questions that employers might ask in a behavioral job interview. These are all actually examples of my badges. And I'll ask you to imagine for a moment that I'm applying for the post of a director at an adult learning agency. Some of these badges are self-asserted, some have been issued by others. They all have evidence supporting the claims, and some of the badges have been endorsed by others. I would ask you, do you think some of these badges might help me make my case? Looking at them, I might sort of tell the story and then follow up with the badge itself after the fact, for example. And some of you folks may remember the I Failed Forward badge from previous summits. That was a fun one. So let's try and wind things up here. Hopefully I'm doing good, doing well for time. This is my sprawling alternative to that earlier circuit board model as a way of explaining the LER ecosystem. I'm grateful to Wendy Palmer, Marco Griffith from Australia for the useful term messy middle, where most of the interactions happen. And actually, not all mess is bad. It's actually very human. But let's remember the stakeholders involved in this and the key questions they have as they navigate the complexity. Not only learners and employers, but also the educators and the funders and the policymakers who want to do right by the system. So, sorry for making your heads explode. I'll show you a simpler version now. I originally shared this in a webinar hosted by the ILO back in 2023, and I framed things from those same 4 stakeholder perspectives. Learners need to build skills, but also to connect with other people, to have rewarding lives and careers, joining communities, transitioning between communities. Employers need to build the skills of their workers, but also need to grow and change themselves as organizations. Educators need to show how they're helping develop resilient lifelong learners and foster the relevant skills that learners and employers need. A lot of them are durable skills. And governments and funders need tools to inform their policies, their programs, even the goals that they might be making for the public good. These stakeholders have diverse needs and goals in a larger ecosystem. On the one side, you're balancing stories of human potential. On the other side, you've got multiple performance goals at scale. The trick is to find ways to properly match these needs and potentialities. We are getting there, and yes, linked data, AI can help a lot for scale, but we need to keep all these very human perspectives in balance if we want good results. So switching hats for a moment, Learning Agents, we've been applying technology, strategic thinking over the years to move this forward. We partnered with Finland's Open Badge Factory in 2016 to provide CanCred as a leading service here in Canada. In doing so, we've been emphasizing more open approaches to recognition based on that flexible taxonomy from formal to informal. It's been great, but people wanted more ways to make that kind of recognition scale. So this year we were excited to partner with Edelex and SkillsAware out of Australia, bringing middleware connectivity to multiple sources of truth, dynamic evidence collection, a reference database of over 60,000 robust skills definitions developed over 4 decades with industry, and it's all wrapped up in an AI-based diagnostics and coaching service supporting what I like to call recognition as a conversation. AI-based technology in support of human connection, not replacing it. Some of you folks with regard to Edelex might know Edelex from the Education Design Lab, the experience or X credit that they have. Anyway, this provides us with a broader palette. We do remain true to the original Mozilla vision, and open recognition is still our North Star. So back to my advocate hat, I'm part of a community, international community that's been exploring how to open up recognition for over 20 years. EPIC's been having a moment actually over the last few years as a result of doubling down on the notion of recognition itself as a way of connecting humans across silos and communities and borders. We launched the Paris Declaration on the Equality of Recognition last year. 2025 will see the Open Recognition Manifesto that people will be learning more about in Paris. Beyond that, at the this year's conference, we're going to be working on how to articulate recognition across the spectrum of formality and up and down the scale of volume. So for example, articulating between semi-formal and formal at the organization level or across a region or a sector. We'll also be validating recognition practices occupational framework. And the idea here is that we need more recognition officers and analysts in organizations, in communities, even in institutions, to actually be able to do this in an effective way. So the functions might be these. And the descriptions, a sort of matrix you might develop it might be like this. So it's like it's basically an occupation, a role within an organization that has skills and that people need to develop. And organizations themselves would have maturity models for recognition. That's something we're going to be developing further at the conference. We also have this great session lined up on day 3, and it's an open challenge for open recognition. Some of you maybe have seen some of my my LinkedIn posts over the last week or so. The challenge is based on a crisis in Bajistan. It's a fictional country that's facing a major economic disruption caused by a unilateral, broad-based imposition of tariffs from a major trading partner. Bajistan is looking now for solutions for national skills mobilization, calling on all stakeholders to respond. It's essentially a recognition shark tank. People are supposed to be making demos, well, not making demos, making presentations talking about how they would solve the issues. And it's appreciative. Right? So it's a shark tank, but imagine a kinder, gentler great white shark like in Finding Nemo or something. I encourage everybody here to think about the challenge and consider making a contribution. There's going to be a jury that we need to appoint to evaluate, but the audience will also have a say, and everybody's contribution is going to be recognized. Comms for the EPIC conference prides itself on being a little out of the ordinary, so we've been coming up with serializing a fake news campaign to support the EPIC Recognition Challenge. We call it basically fake news about real recognition. I think I may be having a little too much fun with it. So anyway, lots happening in Paris in October that relates to making recognition more inclusive, more portable. We'd love to see you there. Closing with an opportunity to earn a badge because, you know, this is about open recognition. I'm happy to recognize you with a badge if you want to give me some idea of what you learned about open recognition today, how you might apply that in your work, along with any suggestions for future presentations, such as, I don't know, maybe simpler slides. This is what we like to call a reflective participant badge, and it's a bit of a learning capsule because it'll contain links to what I talked about and also what you thought about it. Otherwise, I encourage you to contact me by email, even explore my badge portfolio if you dare, and happy to take any questions if I've left time for that.
Don, I'm just sitting here clapping. Have filled my notes document with just all of your quotables from this amazing session. I really appreciate it. And, you know, there's just some great provocations there as well as, you know, considerations. I think, you know, one of the takeaways I hope people, you know, give themselves permission to consider is the flat relationship between informal and formal recognition that you showed versus a hierarchical one. I think that was very intentional on your part, and I think that you also invite people to dig into your sharing of indigenous ways of knowing and doing when it comes to recognition. I think that has definitely informed my own views on how we recognize prior learning achievement, and would absolutely plus one Don's invitation to the Epic gathering in Paris in October. It is an incredible gathering. And for whether you can or can't make it, find Don on LinkedIn and check out those posts that he's doing with the lead up here with the fake news for real recognition activation with Badgistan. It is the only thing I don't like about it, Don, is that I didn't think of it because I'm just so jealous. It is such a cool thing you're doing, and I'm loving
Thank you.
following it. For folks who are joining us live, we do have built in now a 15-minute break that is now 14 minutes because I talked too long. But Don Prezant, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and ideas and provocations about storytelling and recognition with the 2025 Virtual Badge Summit.